Hey everyone, welcome to the Tech Banter. My name is Ankur. I'm a tech professional based out of Seattle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vishal. I'm a software engineer in a big tech company, and I'm also based in Seattle. Today, with us, we have a returning guest with us, Surya, and we are continuing the career growth series. Over to you, Surya.
Hey everyone, excited to be part of this like a series of conversation on career growth again. And let me introduce myself. I'm Surya. I take work in a big tech company here in Seattle area, and I'm mostly into program management.
Cool. So, welcome, guys. Before we start the discussion, the topic for today is role transitions. But let's introduce what are we drinking today. So today I am having a plain basic coffee. So what are you
Plus
drinking,
one, same
Ankur?
for me, coffee. Need
Wow.
to keep the energy up. It's been a busy day today, so coffee for me as
Yes.
well.
What I think, guys, coffee here too.
Wow. Cool. Let's start with today's episode. Today's episode is actually the continuation on career growth series. Um, there are three parts to career growth series. One is promotions, role transition, and then switching the companies, right? That is company transition. So we have already covered promotions in good length in our previous episode. And today we will be discussing the transitions, both the transitions, role transition and the company transition. So yeah, let's kick off the topic with role transition, right? So for me, role transition, basically it's a substantial change in an individual's professional responsibilities and job functions. It requires adaptation to different set of tasks, duties, and I think the most important aspect over there is accepting the new professional identity, right? So I think I in my experience, I have seen many people uh, have gone through a successful role transition, and actually they have succeeded in the new role far better than their previous role. So yeah, with that, I want to hand over to Ankur. What is his take on role transitions?
Role transitions are more of a lateral switch from a particular uh, career ladder to another career ladder. It could be within tech, it could be like from tech to non-tech or non-tech to tech. So it's a significant transition, and I think it's a milestone in somebody's career where you strongly feel about doing something else, right? Either you are kind of bored with your current role, or you're not feeling enough challenged in your current role, or maybe you want to try out some new role, right? And you're not sure whether this is the new role is something that you want to do. Maybe you want to try it out and want to see whether you succeed in it or not, and then maybe continue or like get back to your existing role. So I think most of us go through this fork in our careers wherein we have to like make this really difficult decision as well for a lot of us, right? So it's a super important milestone in our career. So I am like excited to talk about it, share my experience, and also learn from what you guys have experienced. So yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, what do
Cool.
you feel?
Cool. Thanks for asking. This topic, coincidentally, very close to my heart. Very, very close to heart. And reason behind is obvious. I have done two major shift in my career, role transitions, and both of them were kind of expanded my horizon, roles, responsibility, and I enjoyed. And it's just matter of time when you take that decision. I really like Ankur, when you said about it's a growth of some different sorts. So when you talk about promotion versus what you are the this whole series is all about career growth. But when you talk about transition, people forget the fact this is also a career growth. Now the question is what kind of growth it is, right? So growth in knowledge, growth in expertise, growth is expansion of your expertise, right? Let's say, there are many different transition I have seen in my career: software engineering to product manager to product program management, like vice versa. And people have, even I have seen people move from product management to software engineering.
Yeah,
All the cases, it doesn't matter what kind of transition you are looking for, or kind of aspiring to. In all cases I have seen, you have an expertise, or you have built an expertise in a certain area, and when you do that transition, you are expanding your knowledge base. For sure, you are not really losing out your previous expertise and knowledge, right? Like you are kind
yeah,
of expanding it. So now the question is when, why, and how, right? These are these are the things. And I really liked, Ankur, when you said when part. So do you really do the career transition every other day? Maybe not, right? So when is a question I want to address, and then maybe I'll hand over to Vishal for his opinion. uh, One reason which Ankur already covered is you are already bored with your knowledge. You kind of feel yourself as a top 1% there, and you don't see a a vertical growth, but you are kind of capped there, and you feel at your level you are the most knowledgeable. You learned what you need to learn, right? That's one point. Second, you come across in a corporate environment, you don't really dig your head into sand and start working, right? You kind of collaborate with many people, come across many different job functions, many different domains, and you kind of come across someone who you get impressed with, or you kind of liked. Oh, is this something I like? Is this I have expertise, I have interest? And that's where this thing get triggered on, right? These are
yeah.
the two aspects I feel when you should start thinking about it. And maybe some other which triggers I'm kind of missing. So I will hand over to Vishal for his side, and then we'll cover how and how. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, Ankur, do you want to add on the when part of, like, when do you think a role transition makes sense?
I can talk about my own experience. The major role transition that I have had has been moving from a individual contributor to a manager. And uh, why did I have that? Right? I think we all have certain knacks, and I don't know. Like before becoming a manager, I felt like I would be I would feel passionate about growing others, and I'm generally, I think, a little inclined towards strategy, goals, delivery in the larger sense, versus really like getting into the nitty gritties or like doing the implementation on day to day myself. So uh, I think that's a strength area that I felt I should explore, and I tried it out. And you never know, right, until you can kind of try it out. So for me, it was more from that perspective. Also, there was the aspect that Surya was mentioning about, like once you feel like okay, as a in my case as an individual contributor, I think I am doing pretty well here. I'm performing strong. What is the next thing that I can do? How can I realize my complete potential, right? Human happiness, I think, happens when we kind of push ourselves and kind of realize our potential. So for me, it was more from that perspective that I thought about the role transition.
I'll one I add one more use case here, which has happened in my surrounding organically to many people. You are in a certain role, and as a part of that role you kind of expanded your responsibility to cover something else. Let's say now you are a software engineer, and you are kind of leading, working, but you, in certain cases, you don't have a product manager in your team, and you end up being the
Yeah,
acting as a product manager. You did not really either, you are a product
yeah,
manager, but you put together a PRD, you put together something, and BRD PRD for the group, and get them moving, right? and that is your first brush into this particular new role. Or you don't have a quality engineer, you are a software engineer, but you kind of did some kind of test framework or testing for the team, and then you kind of felt, oh, this is something I'm good at, or I kind of like it, right? So those are organically expanded, and you kind of observed you performing well in that particular expanded role, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that triggers some interest in you, and then you explore those opportunities.
I completely agree with your point, Surya, here. In my opinion, role transitions are a part of self discovery. So, as you move in your career, eventually you discover new things, you discover your interest, and then you move from there, right?
Yep.
So, cool. Yeah, I think so. I think we have a very good framework for when, right? But how do you select the new role, right? Like that is such an important piece here, right? When you say intentionally someone wants to select a role, right? Let's say you are in a career path and it's not fulfilling anymore to you, and now you want to change a role. So, are there any practical steps someone can take to select a role? Surya, over to you.
Thanks. I think the framework here is playing with your strength.
Okay.
60 to 70% of the new role you kind of understand or kind of experienced, and how the way you go about it is experiencing your new roles or responsibility in the current role. The way I was quoting an example, remember, software engineer, you don't have to really change that title there. Can you experience it, right? If you do that, maybe that's where you kind of see whether you are fitting into that particular role, and whatever that roles and responsibility demands from you, do you have that in you or not, right? So one way I was thinking about is how part, how, right? How to select a role. First and foremost, when you kind of come across, whether it's as a part of the collaboration, whether you read about it, whether it is industry new demand is going on, whatever maybe may have triggered your interest, research that particular role, understand that role, right? And the way you do go about it is by by reading, by networking, by meeting people of the same role, trying to see their strength and weakness required for that particular role, what excites them to bring back them to office every day in that particular new role, and what exactly kind of hard thing for them, right? And make some kind of decision around it, whether you kind of fit into that particular frame of roles and responsibility or not.
Perfect. I think very well summarized on the how part of it. Ankur, do you have anything to add on this? Like how someone can select a new role for them?
Yeah, I think you need to have some idea about what you want to do. I think most people have that idea, like what they want to do. If you are a little unclear, if you want to get more clarity, talk to people who are in the role that you want to get to. Hopefully, people who have followed a similar transition like you in the past, talk to them. That's super helpful. Um, Similar to promotions, mentors here are
Yeah.
very useful. So find a mentor, and I think understanding like how much you want to stretch yourself is important. Like, are you taking up a role which is totally different from what you have been doing today? I would not recommend that, because it's like it might be setting yourself up for failure. But there's a comfort point, I feel, like wherein there is certain areas that you are not aware of, so there is room for you to grow, learn there. But then at least 50% you are kind of comfortable about, right? So I think choosing a role where there is like overlap between your current role and your aspirational role helps. I also
Yes.
want to like bring up a important point about the company in which you are working plays a super important role here
Mhm.
in role transitions. In my
Yes.
experience, I have seen, I have worked for companies which are very supportive of role transitions. They empower their employees for role transitions, but then at the same time there are companies wherein it's not a very, it's not a norm, so role transitions are difficult to come
Yeah.
by. So if you are working for a company where role transitions are supported, you can move across different roles. It becomes easier, and you should definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah.
uh, so like Amazon is a very prime example. Surya has worked there, I have worked there, and Amazon really, like, one great thing about Amazon is it puts a lot of trust in its employees. Like, it's all about performance. You perform well, and Amazon will make sure that you can get any role in the company. I have so many examples wherein people have joined in fulfillment centers
Hmm.
at the bottom of the ladder, and then grown into leading technical organizations, right? So delivering results is super important at Amazon. So yeah, like I think the organization or the company where you are working is also a very crucial factor in terms of the role transitions.
Yeah, one thing I want to bring here is how to select for role transition is basically I see this as the two thing, right? One is you want to learn a new role and you want to experiment or experience that, and the other thing is it's a natural fit, right? So I think for natural fit, it is very organic. Definitely, you will land there, and you have to find opportunities. The most important thing is finding opportunities in that case. But if you're on the other side where you want to learn and experiment or experience with it, right? Then probably I think taking some courses, right?
I wanted to take another crack at it, like now how to think about it, right? How to make a safe transition. Maybe like that's where I'm heading towards, right? So your day-to-day experience of a roles and responsibility depend upon three things. One is like the domain that you are right now in, like whichever role it is, right? Your expertise, your understanding in that particular domain, which is not the skill set, hard skill set like software engineering or like finance or anything, right? Where you are applying that particular knowledge base, the skill set to the domain. And the second thing is culture. So when I talk about culture, I'm talking about micro culture, like culture in that team, culture in that particular role. Every role, every team has its own culture, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thinking into. And then the last one is very obvious, the skill set, right? Unless until you have some kind of command hold over the skill set, that transition is not going to work out, right? So
Yeah.
when you are making this transition from one role to the other role, try to minimize the changes as much as possible. So there are three facets: skill.
Ramp up on the theoretical concepts and everything, and then go and do it practically. I think that is much more feasible, I think.
First and foremost, you are there to remember, like I was talking about expanding horizon and expertise, right?
Mhm.
Expanding that. So you are there to learn new things. You are there to gain new knowledge, expertise. So the first and foremost tool that's there in your arsenal is be open for the feedback. Go there and be open, be observant about your response, like how you are doing and how reception from your stakeholders, right? How they are receiving it, or if there is a subtle feedback, be very cognizant about it. Be open about it. Try doing that. That's first one, right? Second one is you are there with lot of people, your colleagues who are there in that particular role for a longer time. So be kind to yourself, be
Yeah.
patient to learn the skill over a period of time. You cannot really go there on the very second day, even if you are from the outside, it seems like a easy role. Every job has its own nuances and the expertise and the skill and the trick, right? So be kind and patient to learn the skill over a period of time, give yourself some time to go with it. And the third one is like, um, be confident. Be confident.
Mm.
Like whatever you are doing, um, try doing it with confidence and be open for the feedback. And then like course correct and then approach it. I think those will make you successful. And yeah, it's not overnight. It takes
Yes.
time to wherever you go to be successful.
Yeah, I think I agree with this. Like, be more open, right? And then give it some time, right? I think that is very important in role transitions, right? You cannot decide very quickly whether it is a good fit or not, right? Ankur, you want to add anything to how to be successful in role transitions?
Cool. Yeah, I would say I'd give a pretty cliched answer that when you are in a new role, you have to give it your 110%. So uh, outwork others, spend extra time improving your craft, learning new skills. Another thing I would say is, like, if the role has role description and the responsibilities, like, read it, right? And ask yourself, do an honest assessment, where are the gaps, very similar to a promotion, and try to, like, find work that can fill that gap for yourself. um, yeah, those are the things that I would say, in addition to whatever you guys have discussed so
Yeah,
far.
I think one important point I got from you was, I think you have to give 110. That's for sure, right? Also, I think when you are doing a role transition, you are bringing in a new perspective also to that role. People born with that, like, started their career in that particular role, don't have the perspective of other sides, and you got that perspective and you are bringing in that as well. I think that gives you a very unique advantage, I will say, right? It is very easy to fall, like, have a imposter syndrome kind of thing, where you think others are more smarter and better than you. But always, yeah, I will say, a positive feedback loop that you can give to yourself is, I am having a different perspective from all of this, and maybe I am going to add more value in that way, right?
That's
So
a great point, actually. Your advantage is that you have a different perspective. So try to, like, come with an initiative, like, from
yes,
your perspective. Like, maybe all the problems that you are seeing, that maybe others who have just been in that role, or they think that, okay, it is impossible to solve this particular problem, but
yeah,
you are coming from a different perspective. That's a great point. Yeah, I
yeah,
think
I
that's an
think
advantage of a role transition.
Couple of things which will help you to be successful there is, I think like in a way Vishal you cover that investing in yourself, like investing in yourself to enhance your knowledge base, craft knowledge, like wherever, if you can do some studies, course, whatever you can. And the second thing that I think is very important, in a way I kind of covered that, but I did not really touch upon it, hence I wanted to bring that up. Feedback loop, right? Like be while you are be like being open for the feedback, invest in building a soundboard or a support system around you. Maybe it in the form of the manager, maybe it in the form of the mentor, somebody who you are very candid to discuss your weakness, gaps, the way you see it, and get the perspective from there. And if they it is it's the best if they are like an expert in your new role, then it will be easy for you to kind of learn. And but you need a soundboard, you need a support system. And I would say like while you are thinking about building up a doing this transition, build this like soundboard or build this support system along with that, so it will be helpful in the longer run.
yes, I completely agree. Like, if you have a good environment to grow in that role, definitely it is going to help you. So
Okay.
I want to touch base, when you go into that new role, do you really feel like you are lagging behind?
For me, yeah, definitely there is a discomfort initially, because there is a lot of unknowns for you. I'll tell you, from like a transitioning from an IC to a manager, there are just
Mhm.
so many meetings that you are part of, for the first time. For example, performance management, right, where you have to discuss the ratings of your employees and compare them to like employees of other teams. It will be the first time that you will be attending that meeting, right? You don't know what are the norms of that meeting, how to react to a particular question, how to deal with a particular situation. Similarly, you might have to put an employee up for promotion, right? Now you have to advocate for your employee. So those are all first time experiences for you. You might have to have a difficult conversation with an employee. Either you have to like deliver a bad rating, or you would have to like let go of an employee. Those are like very unique experiences that you will have for the first time. So I think you are kind of like, you're unsure like how to
Mhm.
behave, how to react, how to respond to that particular situation. So I think especially for managers, I think your business process HR is your friend. So this is what I have learned, that whenever you have to deal with this situation that you have not faced before, have a one-on-one with your HR, or talk to your manager about these situations, or other like peer managers. Those are like super helpful.
uh, give yourself little time, be patient, be kind to yourself,
Mhm.
don't be harsh, and acknowledge the fact that wherever you have transitioned, whether it is like to a management position or whether it is a new role, from from software engineering to product management or a data analyst, or data engineering to data scientist, like there are so many transition people make. Acknowledge the fact that wherever you have gone, your colleagues are there for a longer time than you, right? So try to be as receptive as possible, and be open, be have some kind of soundboard or some kind of support system that kind of helps you to transition that path, that discomfort, that as Ankur kind of tagged that. And actually it is and discomfort while you do that transition. So yeah, give yourself little time.
So, one of the most common role transitions that many of us go through uh, is from individual contributor to a manager, right? I think if we can share the ideas or opinions or your experiences basically in that experience, right, from IC to a manager. So I will hand over to Ankur. Ankur, can you share your experience?
Yeah, I think yeah, as you said, it's a very common role transition, and a lot of times I have seen that the IC who wants to pursue a particular managerial role, they are not like super sure. So I think you should treat it as not a one-way door, but you should keep your option open, that this is something that you want to experience, and based on your experience, right, whether you are successful or not, you would want to like continue or like go back to your previous role. So I think positioning it like that is super useful. But in
Mhm.
terms of like making that transition, I think the number one criteria is that you have to be performing strong, exceeding the expectations in your current role as an IC, right?
Yes.
Without that, it is going to be difficult. Usually, when we talk about like growing an IC into a manager, it is usually given to the person who is like performing strongly in their current role. So that's number one criteria, like non-negotiables, I would say. Second thing, second thing I would say is don't be a jerk in your team, right? In a team of ICs, you might be like the smartest individual contributor in the team, but if you have a managerial aspiration, you have to like move forward with everybody. So make sure that you are somebody that is very very approachable. People go to you for problems, and you love to help people solve their problems, grow people, right? um, so you have to be like involved in activities that are not people manager activities, but then a lot of activities like the manager takes a primary role. For example, interviewing, hiring. I think typically the individual contributors who eventually become manager, they play a very active role in all these things, like interviewing, hiring, preparing the loop for interviews, setting up processes in their team, setting up culture in their team. Those things are super important, right? Make your managers current managers
Yes.
life easy. They'll automatically start thinking about you as either like their successor, or as the scope of the team increases, they will definitely want to have you as their manager, right? So just make it like a very organic, natural process. um, Take initiatives. Initiatives are super important. Managers are basically uh, going to be the leader of that team, right? So leaders have to take initiatives. So as an individual contributor, take initiatives. If you see problems, don't wait for your manager to like tell you to solve that problem. Go to your manager with ideas. Go to your skip with ideas that they should pursue, right? Those things, initiatives are appreciated a lot. And then I think having that conversation with your manager, with your leadership about your aspiration, very similar to promotions, that hey, this is something I want to do. And make it easy for them to give you that opportunity, which is like, start with managing one person, two-person, three people, right? It's a great way for you to test out that hey, is this role really for me? Can I really manage these people? Do I want to deal with all their performance concerns, one-on-ones, uh, people asking you for their career growth, promotions? Is this something that I'm going to enjoy? So it's a good way for you to test it out, right? And then if you enjoy it, then you can kind of grow into that role. So remove as much friction as possible. um, yeah, like those are the things I would like advise or say that I have seen working for others in terms of making the managerial transition.
Do you believe in having natural leadership qualities, um, and then that person fits perfectly in a managerial role?
I think a lot of these qualities can be developed, right?
Okay.
It can take somebody could be natural. I'm not saying that there are no natural leaders, but I would not say that if you are not a natural leader, you cannot be a leader, right?
Hmm.
I think like a lot of these qualities can be developed.
Okay.
um, so yeah, if you are
Yeah.
natural, then great, but if you are not natural, does not mean that you should not pursue something.
Yeah.
uh,
Uh,
yeah.
I would go up to an extent saying, like, 100% natural leader is
Hmm.
mythical.
Mythical.
It's mythical, like, right? However natural you are, you have some scope of learning, some scope of
Yeah.
adjusting, some scope of, like, expanding yourself, and hence, and again, like, everybody grows in a very individual environment, like, from your home to, like, growing and, like, building that leadership. So by the time you reach to a company, maybe, like, you have laid many initiatives, but again, with that environment, with that culture, you certainly will have some scope to learn and expand yourself as a leader.
Yeah, I think this leadership is a continuous journey, right? Like once
Yeah.
someone becomes a manager, doesn't mean they stop learning new leadership things, right? So I think it is a continuous journey that goes along. Cool. Yeah. Awesome discussion, guys. I I want to touch base on one very important point, which is the challenges and the pitfalls when you're going through the new role. Like, what are the things that you should avoid? We have so far talked about what you should do, but definitely from the past learnings, from the experiences, we can, if you can share, like what are the things that someone should not do, or what are the pitfalls? So over to you, Surya.
Pitfalls, as in, like, I would say, don't overdo. Whenever you are in a new role, don't overdo.
Over.
Don't set over expectation on yourself, which is what part of my previous answer as well. Like, say, give yourself some time. And also at the same time, give yourself a deadline to introspect and see how far you kind of fade in the new role, right? May that be sometime, may that be 3 months, may that be 6 months, may that be year, but you should be having it at least some kind of introspection, how far I have gone in this path. And obviously, one other thing that I always talk about when we talk about the role transition, as you create a support system, you should also create a safety bounce back. So
Hmm.
mostly, if the new role is not working out, you should have a way to figure out, and second, B, to bounce back to your previous role if that was working fine with you, right? So
Yeah.
those are that. And as I was talking, I kind of remembered one big pitfall, or one big experience that I had. If you are making any kind of transition within the company, within the group, within the team, the stakeholders are not changing, your role is changing, which is the safest way to go about it. But the downside to that is your stakeholders are still expecting you to do the job or the response. Their expectations are still tagged to your previous role. That's a bigger battle.
Yeah.
I would say, the clearer your manager, your system, or you make it clear for that, will be easier for you to kind of excel in the new role.
Yeah. Should there be a hard boundaries between your new role and the previous role, or it should be a blur, gray area?
While you are making the initial transition, you are kind of testing the water, let that be blurry. But once you cut open and then go to the new,
Okay.
officially you are going to the new role, as as much as possible disassociate from your previous role, because that is a
Previous
that
roles.
is a kind
Okay.
of anchor back, which will hold you back performing at your peak in the new role.
Ankur, from your side, do you think there are any pitfalls or challenges while doing role transitions?
Yeah, I think role transition is a challenging milestone, in my opinion, right? It is going to be a challenge. It's a major change in terms of your career. So I would say, like, don't make sure the timing is good, right? So don't time it
Hmm.
with another big milestone in your life. Let's say it need not be a career related milestone. It could be like something personal. You are, I don't know, you are having a
Mhm.
baby, or uh, you are going through a period in your life that you cannot take a lot of stress. I would say, like, kind of try to decouple role transition from those events in your life, because otherwise it becomes difficult, because this will be a time when you have to give like 110%. So that would be the only thing I would say. Otherwise, I think Surya covered it. Like, keep
Yeah.
it like a, don't make it a one-way door. Have the option to come back to your previous role if required. Uh, but yeah, go with a positive frame of mind. I think from my experience, I have seen 90% of the role transitions being successful. So I think,
Nice.
like, don't be afraid. Like, most of the people are able to do the role and difficult role transition. And I'm not talking about like easy role transitions. I think effort goes a long way whenever you are doing something new for the first time,
Yes.
right?
Agree.
Yeah, I think from my side, I will say one thing that I have found very important is don't burn the bridges, first of all, right? When I say don't burn the bridges, you are leaving, let's say you are doing a role transition and you are going to change the manager, right? The previous manager with whom you have worked so far, make sure he doesn't have any problem with that, right? Make sure the work that you are doing, you have handed over to someone, either you have completed it end to end in a such a way that there is no more need for that, right? Because eventually when you go to the new role, you are still going to be remembered in the previous team with the work that you have done, right?
Agree.
And yeah, don't burn the bridges when you are doing that, right? I think role transitions are complicated, challenging, tricky, but do it in a as much as peaceful, smooth manner as possible, right? Cool.
Yes, that's a great point.
Yeah. with that, I think if you guys have any other questions about role transitions, please feel free to drop it. Cool. Yeah, with that, I will like to thank Surya for joining us in this career growth. Surya, it was really a pleasure to have you.
Thank
Sure.
you, Surya.